Hi, welcome back. You're in the web, you're trapped, you can't go anywhere. I'm going to give you the phone number so you can call in because I know there's some people out there might have questions for these gentlemen. And I don't want to hold you back. I don't want to occupy all their time. I'm going to allow you to call in. The number is 617-708-3280. So if you have any questions, please call in. We are going to talk about this wonderful book. So tell me, how did this get started and why are we doing this?
Well, Portraits of Purpose is a book about individual and collective leadership over the last 30 years here in Boston, the inner city of Boston. And these are individuals who saw challenges and things that needed to be changed, and they stepped up to the plate and did something about it. Two people that come to my mind, and many people may know of them, is Mel King is one. Mm-hmm. Mel has been a community activist for many years. He was a state legislator. He was in the final mayoralty contest some years ago. Mm-hmm. So he has done a lot to lead people in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Another fellow who we don't know too much about is Michael Kozu. Mm-hmm. And he's a young man of Japanese-American fellow who's been around for the last 20 or more years, interested in youth and getting them in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So this is just a microcosm of what's in the book. It's quite a broad view of individuals like this.
Mm-hmm. So why did you, I'm like, of all the things to do, why did you feel it was important? And why did you feel important that you had to be a part of this?
Well, you know, this all started with the photo exhibit that Don did for the Museum of African American History, mm-hmm. where he selected these, well, a smaller subset of these portraits to be exhibited there. Mm-hmm. And Don had long thought about doing a book, and somebody dropped my name to him, and we had a conversation, and it sounded like a worthy project, and I was stuck on something else I was working on. And I was attracted to the message of social change. Mm-hmm. I mean, one way to look at who these people are in this book collectively, these are the people, or many of the people, who have created the new Boston that we live in today, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. where barriers were opened.
Because of them.
To schools, right. to neighborhoods, to jobs, to political power. Yeah. To culture, mm-hmm. broadly defined, yeah. not just certain people's culture, but other people's culture.
And they weren't selfish. I think, and they put their life on the line, a lot of these people in the book. Mm-hmm. And to read about them, like Doris Bonds was definitely one I thought I was so impressed with. Mm-hmm. I said, her name sounds familiar. I'm like, I've heard of her. What does she do? And then I started flipping through the book, and I'm like, there she is. And this is why she did what she did. And this is why they appointed her, right. you know, to the position of the Housing Authority. She used to live in the housing projects.
She was also a state legislator for a period of time.
Right.
So she performed on many different platforms.
First black woman in the Massachusetts legislature, Doris Bunty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to what you said in the conversation. When you left your home and you went somewhere else, you realized there are black people in leadership. Mm. And I think when I was growing up, I found out, there's black banks, mm. there's lawyers there are black artists who are doing well. You don't know that as a child. Mm-hmm. And I don't know with kids knowing that, do they still get excited to know that it's in this day and age? But I think this book helps with that.
Very, very true. I think one of the great values of this book is the support of the understanding that the average person can make a difference and can make a change.
Yes.
And so that if you see something, step up and do something about it. So we're trying to inspire folk with folk who already have been very inspired and dedicated and committed to change.
Particularly young people. The way I wrote the profiles is to make them accessible. Certainly the students in high school, maybe even in middle school with some parental support. And these young people, these children, young people can see people who've done things. I think there's something like a dozen people in this book who are, as I like to say, up from the projects, who lived in public housing at one point. And not everybody started in such modest circumstances, but there are a lot of them who did. People who are first-generation college graduates. And not only did they lift up themselves, they rose and reached back and helped other folks.
That's the key. That's the purpose, I think. That's bigger than being a leader, to really reach back and bring the people that where you were, because a lot of times leaders get to the top and they forget where they came from. They don't want to know. They want to, I was there. You need to help yourself. I help myself. You need to help. And that's not what this is about. It's showcasing those people who had the courage to do that and had the courage to go back and bring, it's like Harriet Tubman, she was free. She didn't need to go back. But what she did, she put her life on the line and she went back. And she rescued so many more people that needed to be rescued. Why did she do that? I think you two you're doing that, so to speak. You're looking at your life and the things that affected you. And then you're saying, I need to showcase that too. I like that.
Well, there's one picture in the book, which we may have in the slides when we take a look at the slides, and that is Dr. Keith Motley, who is the chancellor.
Can we show Dr. Keith Motley?
He's the one, I think.
Yeah, can we run those pictures?
Maybe Keith, I think, was was one of the last pictures on that roll.
And this we have
can we see that? Oh, you can see. That's the Bowlings.
Bruce Bowling and the three of them.
Yes, all together.
They both were all in the government.
Right.
At the same time.
At the same time.
But let me just make this point. Oh, here we are, so we can see. Well, let's just stay on the bowling just for a minute so I can make the point about Keith Motley. When we see that picture, you'll see that he's putting an armor on a young fellow. And this was at an event where Keith was speaking. And this young man, who had accomplished something himself, introduced Dr. Motley. But when he came up to speak, the young man was leaving, but he grabbed him and pulled him back. And he started to speak about this young man, which basically he was bringing him forward and lifting him up. And that was, people ask me, how do I take pictures and when and how do I do that? I see certain things, and I saw that moment. And that was, photographs are about moments. And if you can get the right moment, you can say a lot. So anyway, we're looking now at Diama Battle, and I think Ken has a nice story about her.
Yeah, I was meeting Diama the first time when I interviewed her. I interviewed 60-odd people in person for the book. She's the founder of Art of Black Dance and Music that goes back a few decades. But she told me the story about how when she was a little girl, she would get dressed up and get on her mother's bed and start dancing and watching herself in the mirror. This is not her mother's bed, her aunt's bed. Now those of us who grew up know what came next when she was seen standing up on her auntie's bed. Get off my bed. But the mirror I use as a metaphor in my piece, because she's watching her own movement, and she studied and researched in the field African dance and African dance movements, and then taught those movements to children all across New England. And for black children in particular, they became, when they looked in the mirror, they began to have a broader sense of their own cultural identity than when they looked at it before and just saw who they were and not knowing their connection to Africa and that cultural tradition.
When I was growing up, and I thought about, I love dancing and I love to choreography, but I never thought that was a career. You know, I never thought I could make it. And surely during that time, it was probably very difficult. But to have her and as an example today, because even though we're saying that kids have so many opportunities, I think some kids don't think they do.
And part of it is awareness. They don't know you, like you
That
said.
knowledge.
They know that you can do this and make a living. You can do that. And if they do know it, then how do you get there? You know.
That's the key.
Right.
How do you get to there? But
And they need examples of that.
Right.
exactly.
Which this book kind of gives us a roadmap to.
Exactly. And I think that's the greatest. Can we see some more of the pictures?
This is Napoleon Jones Henderson, who's a very well-known artist here in Boston, and he's working on a piece right now in the bowling building, the building named after
They
Bruce
actually
Bowling.
gave him the contract.
They gave him a contract to work on an artistic piece within the building.
Okay.
So I'm not sure
Nice.
exactly what it is at the moment, but he's
Nice.
a very fine artist.
Nice. And he hails from Chicago, right? I
Yeah.
think it was Chicago. Can we see another one?
And this is Linda Dorsina Forey, who is now a senator for South Boston.
Oh, and Dorchester, she's my state senator.
And certainly she's a wonderful person.
Okay. We have one more?
And Barry Gaither, and this is at the Museum of African American History, but it's a very long title. The National Center for the
National Center, the Museum of the National Center of Afro-American Artists.
Artists. It's a title. But this is a beautiful bust on the grounds of the museum done by John Wilson, another Boston artist who passed away, I believe, last year. But Barry has been at the forefront of making sure artists in Boston are recognized and have an opportunity to exhibit.
To showcase their work
Yes.
at the art
At the museum.
Now, how did you decide to pick? Because I know it's 127. How did you decide to pick? Because I know I'm not in here, but maybe one day on the second book, no. But how did you decide to pick?
Well, initially, as Ken mentioned before, it started out as an exhibit at the Museum of African American History, which is on Beacon Hill, the African Meeting House. And I had been in Boston about 15 years doing a lot of work and news work and so forth. And they invited me to exhibit, so I'm wondering, what shall I do? And I wanted to highlight people who had made a difference in the city. So at that time, I looked in my archives, because I had shot a lot of stuff over the 15 years, and I culled out 25 individuals that I thought were recognizable. And it was very successful. We had the exhibit there for a number of months, and they wanted to do it again the next year. I did the same thing. So that's how, in the beginning, I was taking out of what I had, but now it has evolved into we're seeing different individuals and we're adding them to, and I'm going out and taking their picture.
Now, do you still?
So you might be in line.
Watch out, Ted. But I know we're going to a break, but I lost my train of thought. I wanted to know, is there going to be a second book?
Well,
it sounds like it. It sounds
Well,
like it.
it could be. It could
could
be
be.
down the road a way.
Okay.
If we're kind of ending this portion, I just wanted to say we're going to be at the Eggleston Library next week, I believe it is, on Wednesday the 5th at 6 p.m. And the Eggleston Library is at 2240 Columbus Avenue, right around the corner from where we are now.
So you guys will be book signing?
We'll
Yes,
be
we will.
talking and book signing.
Can't have this one, sorry. Well, we're going to a PSA, and we'll be right back with these gentlemen, and we will see what's on their mind.